Some of you are probably packing your bags right now, or maybe you're in the middle of your travel to Worlds in Barcelona. Now, sure, the main event is the draw, but for the vast majority of us, it's the side events. How awesome are those side events? So make sure you pack a commoner deck or two. Which heroes to bring? In today's video, my breakdown of the format's leading heroes. Will you choose one from the top, or will you choose your favorite and shock the field?
Challenge accepted.
A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Commoner fans! We know you're passionate about your format, and it's time to show it. Flesh and Blood Commoner videos historically underperform, not just in views, but in engagement. Show your content creators that Commoner matters, both by liking and leaving a comment on this and other Commoner videos to encourage engagement. See you on the tables, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to another Commoner video here on Dice Commando. Thanks for tuning in today. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of people probably have left, some of them, or you're on your way, you're packing your bags, headed out to Worlds, and if you are, there's going to be a bunch of side events, which is, when I went to Worlds last year in San Jose, I'm not going to Worlds this year, by the way, but when I went to San Jose last year, I played in the Calling, and then I kind of scrambled to get some side events in, and I had a lot more fun personally playing the side events than I did not the main event at Worlds, obviously, because that's Worlds, but you understand what I'm saying. So I had a lot of fun with that, and it's, where else are you going to find out like a 40 plus 50 person commoner tournament? You're not going to pull that down at your local, so it's very interesting to track that and see how it's going. So today I wanted to talk kind of today it's not going to be a tier list in the true sense, because there are 32 commoner heroes, even at 1 minute per hero. That's a long video, and none of you wants to sit here that long. So I'm going to do a tier list of sorts, but I'm really just going to look at the top tiers, the top groups. All right, so let's go ahead and move into, like I mentioned, the tier list of sorts. I definitely use that with quotes. What I want to look at is I want to look at the top tier heroes, the ones that I think ultimately drive the format. And then I have down there the contender tier. And the reason we have to look at it like this, you can call it tier 0, tier 1, tier 1, tier 1.5, whatever you kids want to call them, that's fine. But I have the top tier and the contender tier. And the reason we have to look at both is because the commoner format is very, very, very dependent on who you're playing, who you're running up against. And by playing, I mean who you're playing against, right? Who you're running up against, right? Prism can do very well until she doesn't. And other heroes can do very well until they don't. Okay, so we have to definitely look at both, because someone who's very good, maybe it's you, can certainly show up with a contender hero and win the event. All right, so starting off on the top tier, first is Dash. So Dash has always been very strong in this format, but very, very, very susceptible to fatigue. And in fact, I would say about a year ago, when the format was very kind of just really ramping up, I think Dash probably was the top hero. But over the last year and a half, as things have kind of developed, people have learned really how to fatigue into her, and the heroes that are doing well within Commoner kind of had deprioritized her a little bit, probably into the contender tier. That said, with this recent set, Dash got a huge boost in the arm, pun intended, see how funny I am. And I think she's really, again, there's a lot of 0-3s, a lot of 1-4s. The reason 0-3s are good is because if you're doing the hyperdriver with her, which I think you should, it makes that dollar for the 1-4, right? So you're not relying just on your 0-60s for this. You now have a whole smattering of 0-3s with which you can really generate resources off your hyperdriver without paying anything. So that solves a lot of your problems. You then have Vest the First Fist to maybe get a payload off at the end if you've got your 2. Tons of great stuff in there. I will link a video we talked about very recently with List for Young Dash. And I'm going to do that a lot, by the way, through this. I'm going to say young because I'm reading obviously off the slide for notes, and it just happens in my head. But obviously all of these are young heroes. You get it, so thank you for your patience on that. All right, next up is my boy Bravo. Has always been easily a top tier hero in this format, but with the new drop of the Round the Table set pulled up, was it Earthlore Empowerment, I believe it was. That might be the wrong Earthlore, but definitely the play +3 pump -1, very good card, fits right into him. Also had a deck recently on him, which I will also link above. The next hero which we have to talk about is Fi. Fi is almost certainly probably the poster child for this format. He's won a lot of the bigger events that have happened out there. Being able to do his stubbies turn, put somebody on the back foot, and then do his thing is extremely strong. It's extremely valuable, and he can get pretty gross because you have a lot of little things. You have flame calls, you have inflames, and all of a sudden there's just like 9 stabs on the Chane. It's very, very, very good. Okay, so not taking anything away from Fi. That said, and I'm not taking anything away from Fi at all. That said, I don't think he is as standout strong as a lot of people think he is. I have a lot of faith in Aria. There are a couple different builds out there. We have the, you know, the Break the Chain Beatdown that Jesse Valdez came on and talked to us about as well. Kind of that build, plus Aria picked up, you know, Red Bittering Thorns, right? That's an absolutely awesome new card from, again, around the table. Kind of changing things a little bit. She is the only hero that has a specialization available in the format in Whirling Mist Blossom, and there are enough reacts now, especially with what was picked up in Outsiders, to be able to really threaten pushing that over the top. And getting card draw in this format is basically game breaking, right? And then you add that on top of the new mask of hitting 3 times. She could potentially, right, if you hit Whirling Mist Blossom and the new mask, you could potentially draw 3 cards over the course of a turn. As a ninja, that could just end it. Plus, she again has the Kodachi, you know, for a single blue, she has the Kodachi 1-2-7 line. So she plays Popper. She has options there. Very strong hero. Do not count Aria out. Last, and this is the one that I think is most contentious, I have a lot of faith in Icelander in this format. I think she's very, very, very strong in this format. She doesn't seem to get a lot of love within the format, but I think that's just because a lot of the folks are skewing to the other ones that, quite frankly, are probably a little easier to play, which is completely fair. Part of the reason I like playing Bravo myself is because he has so many blues into someone like Icelander, but you can very easily run a Wounded Bull-esque type package with Icelander. And remember, she has Amulet Ice in this format. Now, obviously, she doesn't have as many blue ice cards, right, because you're more limited, but so is everybody else. And being able to just smack for, like, you know, and again, how much AB are they have? You come over the top, you threaten them over the top, you do the Wounded Bull thing, and then on their turn, you put them down. I think she's very, very, very strong in this format. So those are my top 5 picks for top tier heroes. Now, I realize that your hero may not have been up there. Those are how I see it, but hopefully your hero, if you think they should be top tier, hopefully I also have them in the contender tier. So right out of the gate, I want to go with Chane. Chane is also someone in this format who can do a lot of really awesome and gross things. He also does stubbies, right? You have Bounding Demagon, which 2 of them trigger on that, right? The red doesn't, but the yellow and the blue do. And you have several of his tricks, which do the same thing on a stubbies turn if you can set that up. He gets the go again, obviously, that you need. He can run a Shrill package, right? Because you're creating the aura and go into Shrill, and then, oh yeah, he has Rosetta Thorn. And one of the weaknesses of him is fatigue, to the point we talked about Dash earlier. He's self-fatigues, right? Most of the time I play him, he ends up losing on life instead of cards, but that's functionally the same thing, because what it means is he's shackled too many times and he has stuff in there. So, but again, that's why I have him in the contender tier. I think I don't think he's as aggressive as Fi is. I think that the mixed damage thing puts him definitely in contention, though, in terms of how that goes. All right, Kassai. Kassai was originally my only warrior choice in here. However, we'll go ahead and skip ahead to young Dorinthea and then come back to Kassai. So Dorinthea picked up the axe. And you can now play... Before, there was really no functional reason to play Dorinthea over Kassai. Kassai basically did everything better for the most part. Dorinthea was really short on things that could give Dawnblade go again. So zoom ahead to what we picked up in Dusk Till Dawn with the Decimator Great Axe, which is a rare, which means it's completely playable in this format. And you can now go a pretty decent full fatigue type package with her. You're not necessarily going to... I think it plays very different than like the CC deck that I've been pumping over the last couple months. I think you really have to go fatigue in this, but that's very good. And again, with only 20 health in the format, that's only 5 swings. And again, there's not a lot of armor in this format. So they kind of have to start doing exactly what you want them to do. and then you can put them in react range. So I think she's pretty good. Coming back to Kassai, Kassai has a ton of like Blade Runner. All the good stuff is common for Kassai. We talk about a Kassai enough on this channel. She's a very straightforward enough hero. I don't want to spend too much time talking about her. You don't necessarily have the copper trick. You don't have the finality trick, but you have... Oh, she's just good. And she's super... She's probably... Well, no, because of Ira. I was going to say she's one of the most consistent heroes in the format, but Ira is probably the most consistent hero in the format, if not Bravo. But Kassai can absolutely do things. She's a great matchup into Bravo, actually, as long as she can stay ahead to where she doesn't have to be taking dominates. Because, again, you don't have to worry about, you know, your spinals and stuff like that. New addition to this list is Database Dash. So I openly admit I didn't think that Database Dash, aka Little Dash IO, didn't think it was going to be super viable in Commoner, and I've lost to it twice this week in Commoner. It certainly has variability to it. There's no question there, which is why I do not have it in top tier. I do think that someone like a Bravo can probably still stay in front of it with like an unmovable in Arsenal or something like that, trying to get around the boom grenade, kind of surprising you. But being able to go a whole bunch of 0-3 reds and then finish with, so I've seen it played with rainbow payload, right? Just because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the boom grenade and then get payload out, because again, you're a low armor format. So unless they have reacts in Arsenal and they didn't already use it while you were hitting them with the other two cards, you drop that boom grenade down for one, right, from top deck, and then you use the other two resources from your blue or whatever to pay for payload. It's pretty effective. It's pretty effective. And imagine taking a payload, so you're maybe only taking 1 or 2 off a payload, but then you're hitting for 4 or 3 off of a boom grenade. It's pretty disgusting, right? So Database Dash, I can't, whatever. You know what I'm saying. DBD, okay? I actually like that. DBD, I think, is very legitimate contender. The variability is high, though. All right, Katsu I have in contender simply because I think he's worse than Ira, but he can also do some pretty awesome things. We saw Cameron Summers' lists about a month ago. He top 4'd the last Commoner Crawl. Awesome list there. But again, I think overall Ira's probably just slightly better, but I don't think better enough that Katsu couldn't take the tournament down. Right, next I have Oldhim. Have to speak to Oldhim in this format because he fatigues. That's what he does. He also has access, you know, there's Autumn's Touch and stuff like that are absolutely in there. And he just can, you know, he walks in with a boatload of armor. He does have the Steel Blade or Steel Braid buckler as the shield with his normal hammer. Keep in mind, Bravo also has the buckler if he wants to use it. Prism I have on there again just because of kind of the matchup basedness of it. There's a really cool, so there's kind of 2, actually there might even be 3 ways to play her, really. You can just go full on Heralds, right? Do like a Pummel Prism type build, right? Where you're trying, because remember, you don't have Luminaris. So you can do that. There is an aura-based build where you start with the new gloves that poops out a shield, and then you just keep kind of applying the pressure there, pitching a blue. Plus you have obviously your Heralds to put pressure on, Heralds of Protections, run a rainbow of that, and so on. And then last, you can also do kind of like a War Tune reacts, where you're trying to play like War Tune and then go again with Razor Reflex into another War Tune. But obviously that's very dependent upon not running up into a Brute or a Guardian. All right, Azalea I have on here because Azalea brought to you by things such as 15 Dominate, which I've absolutely heard Mr. Kevin Sett say across the room at a Commoner Crawl before. That can just get things done, right? Azalea, obviously, they don't have the tricks of, you know, Codex of Frailty or Boltyn shots or all that stuff, but she doesn't really need it, right? In Outsiders, she picked up a fair number of additional pumps that are common, Scout the Periphery, Spire Sniping, right? Cards like that, they do work in this Commoner format to make sure you can get your shot off. 12 Dominate, 15 Dominate, absolutely not something that is uncommon to hear in this format. Right, and then the last 2, I want to speak just a little lip service to Lexi. I've always been impressed with Lexi. Still has ice ability, right, to slow down just a little bit. Generally, you know, she can generate 3 or 4 ice across the course of the game, but Shiver dominates. Right, and being able to just stick your hits when you need them, again, from your, you know, your cards, as long as you can get them, your arrows, excuse me, as long as you can get them fused. She is disruptive enough to just kind of chip away 3 to 4 damage maybe per. And, you know, there's probably a build out there that kind of combines the Azalea thing a little bit where you're pumping, and then hitting. But again, you want to make sure that you're getting either the disruptive enough hit or get the ice out there. So I definitely have her on the lower end of the contender list, but she's, you know, there's if you translate kind of that like Shiver Ice Lexi build that's been like doing pretty good things in Blitz, I think that this one translates as well, but obviously not as efficient. And then lastly, Briar. Briar is she's just Briar, right? She has good, you know, you look at your Minnowisms and your Nimbleisms into a Rosetta Thorn. It's good, right? The fact that she can end up giving the Embodiment of Lightning. The Embodiment of Lightning is probably almost certainly stronger for her in this format than is the Earth Thing. Again, the Earth Thing, it lets you defend better. No one's taking that away. But the fact that she can, again, like maybe come in for 8 and then swing Rosetta is crazy good in this format. She does, however, have bad draws, and it can just end your game. So she definitely belongs in that contender tier. So anyway, folks, that is my take overall. Again, if your hero is on one of these or even missing, let me know in the comments why you think I'm wrong. Fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. One of the great things about Commoner format is how basically on the right day, anybody can get her done. Well, almost anybody. Almost anybody. Sorry, Boltyn. Although, you can try Boltyn, maybe with the new axe too. But either way, folks, thanks for joining. If you are headed out to Worlds, have a great time. If you're headed out to Commoner Crawl, have an even better time because there'll be bear there. Nothing else, folks. Go Commando.